Welcome to Learning Outcome 1.2, Normative Theory. In this part of the section, we're going to learn about the ideal role of the media in society and the different degrees of freedom of expression. We're going to be looking at the Authoritarian Theory, the Libertarian Theory, the Social Responsibility Theory, the Soviet Communist Theory, and the Democratic Participant Theory. The Authoritarian Theory looks at dictatorial in society, the suppression of media by the government, and we do the basic assumptions of this, that the press should do nothing to undermine the power and interests of the ruling party, which would be, for example, the government. The press should avoid acting in contravention of prevailing moral and political values, and there should be some sort of censorship. So the main function of the media is to publicize and to propagandize the government's ideology and actions. Therefore, the press could be seen as an instrument and mouthpiece of the government. Examples would be the control of media during Adolf Hitler's Germany period and apartheid in South Africa. On the example in figure 15, we have Nikolai Yezhov, which is standing near Stalin, was removed from this photograph after he was shot dead in 1940. These are the type of censorships that are very common in this theory, such as censorship, propaganda, and a dictatorship. Libertarian theory. The emphasis is on personal freedom and democracy. The media is seen as a source of information and expression of diverse opinions. The media should be free of government control and influence, and the media should act as a fourth estate. The basic assumptions of this is that the media should be free of any censorship, that we should have no coercion to publish anything, and there should be editorial attacks on governments or political parties should not be punishable, and there should be freedom to do whatever you would want to do in terms of in the press. Social responsibility theory is to reconcile the ideas of freedom and independence with responsibility towards society, which is that even though we can borrow some from libertarian theory to show whatever we would want to show, we should not also show every single thing out there that could harm different aspects of our society, and therefore we should be very responsible what we do show the public. The independence of the media should be emphasized in relation to the responsibility towards society, and the basic assumptions of this is the media should accept that they do have certain responsibilities towards society. They should therefore fulfill their responsibilities, avoiding publicized information that can lead to crime, violence, or social disruptions, or can offend ethnic or religious minorities. They should represent all social groups and reflect still a diversity of opinion. Please read the case study on pages 195 to 197. The Soviet Communist Theory looks at the Western notions of freedom of the media were rejected as unfree. The Western media are controlled by capitalist economic interests that prevents the Marxist truth. The basic assumptions is that the media should not be privately owned. The media should respond to the desires and the needs of their recipients. The media should reflect an objective view of the world and of society in terms of Marxist-Leninist principles, and should support progressive communist movements. The development theory is using the media to promote government and cultural identity, to promote the economic development and national identity of the country. So the emphasis is on economic development. The development theory also looks at that the media should make a positive contribution to the national development process. Journalists have responsibilities and liberties in obtaining and distributing information. And the media needs to give preference to national, cultural, and language issue. The state should restrict media if the economic interest is at stake. Examples of this would be the Media Development and Diversity Agency is very important in terms of the noting of this role of media. You can read about this on page 199. The Democratic Participant Theory is our last one, and it's a fairly recent theory which is against commercialization and monopolies in privately controlled mass media. The theory is against centralization and bureaucratization in terms of public broadcasting. The basic assumptions of this theory is that there should be individuals and minority groups should be able to enforce their claim to the right of access to media and right to have their needs served by the media. In general, their social needs are neglected by established media. Please read more about this on page 200 to 201. Before we move on to the next section, which is theme 2, I just want to cycle back to this part of the work and make sure that you guys do understand So the authoritarian theory is looking at the ideology spread out by the ruling class and sort of a dictatorship and censorship and propaganda used by the media. So remember, this is looking at all the different roles of the media in society. So should the media have absolute censorship and should show propaganda and be ruled by government in that sense? Should the media be completely free? And in that case, to argue, should the media be free, would that not be anarchy? There should be no limits to show everything to the public? Or should we be responsible with what we do show? To have a diverse opinion, free of government control, free of censorship, would be responsible to understand that there is going to be offensive material out there to the public if we're not responsible and we show everything. The Soviet-Communist theory looks at the Western notions of freedom and takes that in the communist approach that you can read through in the case studies. The development theory is looking that the government would want to use the media to promote its own nation and promote its own cultural identity. And if the media did sway into a different direction, that it would sort of censor that media so that if the economy is at stake, then we should restrict media. In this case, we'd say the development theory is all about making sure the focus is on the development of the nation. The theory against commercialization and monopolies in privately controlled mass media is our last one and looks at all these basic assumptions, and the case study is there to assist you further. Hopefully this section makes sense. You could ask your lecturer if you have any information or anything to add to this discussion. Make sure you're taking down notes because we're going to move on to theme 2, which is the entertainment function. I will see you there.